that the only reason that he's being forced out of the palace? Just because if the enemy gets him, then that would be very bad?
I think so.
Is there any other reasons? Like, and I'm not talking about, like, oh, it's for his safety. Because he's been who he's been for this whole time. But now that he's just now gotten his first prophecy, does that tune Jigang or any of them into this guy being in here? Or do you think if they come in and attack and they take the Palace of the Prophets and they figure out that Warren is the prophet or a new prophet, then they're going to just take him?
I think that's the answer. I don't think they can, like, tell that he is, but I mean, they have, like, people in the palace now. We know Sisters of the Dark are in the palace.
Right.
So if any of them catch word that he has delivered a prophecy, if Jigang finds out in any capacity, then Warren is in danger because they will want to capture him.
That, I think, more answers my question. Yes, because there's Sisters of the Dark in the palace. You need to get the fuck out of there because it's going to come out now. You've given a prophecy. If anybody else finds that, then the sisters will know. Then Jigang knows, and Jigang will say, grab him.
Yeah, we need him, because we need to be able to manipulate prophecy to our end. Because they believe that Jigang's plan is to take the palace and the prophecies in the vaults. So having a prophet to read those prophecies would probably be pretty fucking awesome. A little useful. And the time may come for the ones on their side to use their Han to fight and protect the palace and all this shit. Or at the very least do what they have to do.
Right.
And they need to know who is loyal before then, because you can't be going into battle with, like, wishy-washy bad people.
No, we know this because we play Sea of Thieves, and quite regularly we get fucked over from trusting people who we should not have trusted.
No trust on the seas.
Seriously, though, love that game. Okay, my moment's done.
Anne reveals that Richard is stirring some shit up in the Midlands, and Verna kind of freaks out about it, which I feel like anybody would. Richard's been gone for, like, literally a hot second.
Not that long, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, okay, so he took over Dahara, and he demanded the surrender of the Midlands, and, oh, by the way, he's actually gotten some people to kind of give him their surrender, and... yeah, he's doing some shit.
Yeah, so that is Richard. Yeah, it hasn't been that long. I have to imagine that Verna reading this has got to be like, she's fucking with me, right? She has to be. He's been gone for like weeks, and he just took over a country and is like making political moves and bullshit.
Yeah.
Somebody who's in there with you. Did somebody else just enter the room? Is there a problem? Do you feel safe? Tell me what's going on, because this is bullshit.
Well, and then, I mean, that's basically, she's like, we have to stop him. She freaks out a little bit, and then Verna is basically told Richard needs to be trusted. The Imperial Order is coming to end magic, and the Midlands is full of fucking magic. It's marbled throughout it. Richard is making the moves that he thinks is right, and so far, they've been pretty accurate. So we have to allow the War Wizard to be guided by his instinct, even if we're all like, that's fucking crazy, because it's better than anything else we have, and he was born literally to fight this war.
It would be very difficult because you're like, oh man, he's making all the wrong moves. I don't know, but we gotta trust him, but we gotta do it. But I would also think that if you were just a simple woods guide who's just all around nice guy from way back where, and suddenly somebody said, okay, now the superpower is coming to take over the world. You do something about it. And you did anything in the general direction of, oh, I have a fucking army now? Yeah, you're doing pretty well. Because everyday average Joe wouldn't have any idea how to go about fighting a superpower or, like, the Order. They would have no idea. And Richard just so happens to be in charge of Dahara and the Midlands now. Like, he's making the right moves. He's got an army now. Hey, there's at least a tiny fighting chance.
Yeah, and I mean, basically that comes down to everything that we're being told about him. Like, he was made untainted. Like, they raised him untainted by anybody else's training so that he would have the right, Like, he knows the instinct and he has the right heart for this because he is a good guy, but he also has the war wizard instinct to be able to raise an army and fucking fight. And it's not just one person, like you said. It's a fucking idea that they have to fight at this point, and Richard is the only person with the ability to fight that.
Right. And I was going to point out, too, that that's just another parallel to Verna. You know, he had to be away from it for a solid 20 years before he could appreciate it. You know what I mean?
See it for what it was, both good and bad.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. A step back is sometimes good.
Yes.
I was looking for a much better word than good, and I was like, shit, panic button. What's one of the easy ones? Good.
So, Anne and Nathan tell her that they're headed to Aidendrill. They plan to return when they're finished to the palace, so that's when Verna will be relieved of her position, hopefully. Cross your fingers.
Well, is she? Because they said they were coming back. They didn't necessarily say that. I mean, okay. Anne did tell Verna, in the event that I die, you will actually become the prelate. I want you to be the next prelate. But then they said they were going to come back. They didn't necessarily say that they were going to remove her from power. They just said they were going to be there.
No,
so,
I think it's implied. She is still the prelate, but she's off on a business trip right now.
Okay.
But it's not safe to let people know that she's off on a business trip. So that's the cause for this whole farce. But she is actually the prelate. Verna is just the acting prelate right now until they get back.
Which
Unless
actually makes it so much better for Verna. Because then if something does really, truly go wrong, then, hey, Anne's in charge.
And then that also, like, okay, so technically, if the palace fell right now, Anne is the prelate. So the palace would be falling under Anne's rule.
Yeah,
So
technically.
she would be the false prelate, right?
It depends. I don't know. Like, okay, this is the one thing about that I was considering. We know that the words aren't necessarily exactly what it's supposed to mean. Now, knowing what we know about future books and stuff, I'm going to do my best to leave that aside, but I will say this. Because the words don't necessarily mean what you think they mean, the false prelate could also, in a way, be a prelate who is not telling the truth. Or like, Anne is not dead. She lied to a lot of people. That could make her a false prelate.
Oh,
and just kind of abstract the words that way a little bit to where it could have.
Okay,
we don't
I get
know
what you're saying. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, like we were saying, all signs kind of point to Verna. So
yeah, we'll see how it happens. They won't say any more to her because obviously they have to keep it kind of brief, and there's a lot. Like it would take a long time to explain everything, anyways. But Verna needs to get fucking moving right now and find those sods because shit is moving quickly. They mentioned the Mariswith being in Aidendrill, like that is like a marker for time moving fast, but I feel like nobody would have predicted that anyways, and then the chapter ends. So it was kind of weird. They were just like, Mariswith are in Aidendrill, and Verna was like, oh, dear spirits, protect Richard, and then it was the end of it, and I was like, oh, what the fuck does that mean?
I mean, yeah, well, especially because the way they appear and they disappear seemingly out of nowhere, a Mariswith moving from point A to point B means exactly 0 in terms of time. Because as far as we know, he can teleport.
Yeah.
So they could go from Dahar to Aidendrill in about a half a hot second, or from the old world for that matter, all the way up to like the tip of Aidendrill, and it would only take just a second. So,
well,
I don't know.
I think it was just funny because Verna...
I must be missing a metric, I think is what I'm saying.
Well, I think it was more we're missing Verna's reaction to it, being like, why did they matter? Are they involved in this war?
Yeah.
Are they connected to the Dreamwalker? Like, why is the Mariswith being in Aidendrill telling us that this war is moving fast? Because you just gave me that as a marker for everything moving forward quickly, and as far as I knew, they stayed in the fucking Hagen Woods, and they were put there to, like, work with the war wizards and shit, right? So, what?
I think maybe them being outside of the Hagen Woods just implies that there's a problem in general. But
Which
it is
I get.
right, but it is just very glazed over.
Yeah, Verna's just like, oh, poor Richard. Ask some fucking
Guess
questions,
those
Verna.
are out there now.
Yeah.
Wah wah.
Okay.
Rest with.
Anyways, that's the end of the chapter. We would love to hear your thoughts on it. And for those, you can go to...
No, wait, you can't start over before I'm done laughing. If you want to let us know what you thought about this chapter or this episode, you could send an email to podcastatt@gmail.com. You can send us a text or voicemail to 616-259-0025. We are on all the social medias at podcastatt, including Patreon at podcastatt.com. You can make a pledge there. We would appreciate the hell out of it. Rate, like, review, subscribe, do all the things that
all the things.
You hear other people say. We love you, and we will see you real soon.
Mm-hmm.